To the channel, and today it is time for the Kashtira guide. We have a full power Kashtira here in Master Duel. We have everything that we will get for this deck. Nothing is missing anymore, and now we will have to see how strong this deck can get. I have to be honest, the first hours on the ladder, though they were a bit bricky in terms of internet connection, really shocked me a bit in terms of what power level I expected this deck to be. It felt really bricky. This was to be expected with the planet being at 1, because being bricky was always a problem that this deck had, but especially now without triple Pot of Prosperity, which was so important to find the unicorn to start off your combo, and was also nice to get your extra deck monster to the banished pile to reattach them to your Kashtira Theosis. This deck definitely struggles a bit, hence why we have a Planet Pathfinder here in the deck to find our pressured Planet Wraithsoft to start our plays. But more to that later. I will explain to you the basic combos. They are basically, I would say, 3 different combo lines that you can go for. This is not a combo deck, keep that in mind. This is more of a control mid-range type of deck that wants to get some advantage by using the recursion cards like the Kashtira Birth or the Kashtira Preparations, and also wants to gain additional advantage by using the strong monster effects of cards like Fenrir or the Unicorn, which is able to break a board, which is able to break your opponent's extra deck, and then obviously also the new boss monster Kashtira Theosis, which is a floodgate by itself, as it has the effect of Macrocosmos, being able to banish everything that hits the graveyard as long as this is on the field, and then also being able to, for the cost of 3 materials, banish anything on the field face down. And it also has the ability to pretty easily replenish its materials, but we will come to this in a moment. So we are at first going to talk about the important cards in the deck. I will explain to you the role that they have, and then we will hop over into the combo part of the video where I show you what you basically want to do on your first turn. Second turn, it definitely depends a bit, but we will come to that and talk about that when we come to the monsters here in the extra deck. There's no specific board breaking technique with this deck, like for example we had in Purely, where I showed you the combo with the happiness. It's not the case in Kashtira. You have multiple options that you can use, but as I already said, we will talk about this in a moment. So let's just hop right in. And I will also talk about decks that you could go for, because one thing I have to say is that it's obviously the first day. I know how to play the deck, I know the combos, but we will have to figure out which the best version of the list is, whether Planet Pathfinder is even good, or you maybe want to use 2 of these. Maybe you want to use Triple Tactics Thrust, which I had in there when I played on the ladder. Didn't really felt that great, but yeah, remains to be seen. I definitely think that Tactics is pretty nice. You will have to see whether Nibiru is something that you want to have in here. Another card that's interesting is the Herald of the Abyss, which is this card here. Being able to basically out Purely Noir, because pay 1,500 life points and declare 1 monster type and 1 attribute, and your opponent must send 1 face a monster with the declared type and attribute from their field to the graveyard if possible. So this you can use to break Purely Noir, but this you can also use to break your opponent's Kashtira Theosis. Kashtira Theosis is basically the only machine monster on the field, so this could be a really nice tech card, which is also searchable via your Triple Tactics Thrust if you want to play that. We are playing 4 pots, which is definitely a lot, and I had some problems with the Pot of Desires banishing important cards from my deck, so I want to try a Pot of Extravagance banishing my extra deck, though this also is a problem. If you want to play the Pot of Extravagance, I think it's very important that you have 3 Kashtira Theosis and 3 Kashtira Shangri-Ira, so that if you banish like 2 of them, you still have 1 of them to play the game. So keep that in mind, but I will talk about this in a moment. Also, Dimension Shifter is definitely a card if you face a lot of other Kashtira players. You want to put this card out of the deck. If you do not face a lot of Kashtira players, then this is a really strong card, and definitely one of the reasons why Kashtira is so strong, because it's able to play Dimension Shifter. This is a theme that we were able to observe over the past few months and years with different decks, for example Fluandorees or Exorcister, which also had their strength level because they were able to play under Shifter so well. So okay, we have a Triple Maxi, Triple Ash, nothing to say here. I mean, that's clear, they are just strong cards. We have Triple Planet Pathfinder because this is basically our combo starter. Unicorn also is, and Fenrir plus a Birth, or a Rysart plus a Birth, or Rysart plus a Kashtira Theosis can also be, but the clearest combo starter is just a Unicorn, which you can search with your Pleasure Planet Waves of. So we are running these cards here to be able to search for the card. The obvious downside, and that is why I'm not quite sure if we will run this further down the line, or if you want to run 3 of these. I think 2 might be the better line, but for now, don't just copy this list, but wait until on Master Duel Meta there are better worked out lists out there, because if you have this planet on the field or it's in the graveyard and then you draw these cards, they are absolutely useless. You don't even have something like a discard engineer. You don't even have a card that needs to discard anything. So they are totally useless, and therefore I'm not quite sure whether you really want to start with them or really want to have like more than 2 or more than 1 of them in your deck, but this remains to be seen. Then we are playing Kashtira Rysart. This card you already know, and is now even more important because it can banish the Kashtira Big Bang now, which we will come to in a moment. I think if you have it, a third Rysart would be very nice. Maybe you want to switch out the Pathfinder for a third Rysart. I don't have it right now. Maybe I will craft it. But Kashtira Rysart, a really important card in the base combo that I will show you. Then we have D-Shifter, as I already said, super important. Of course, if you can make, or if you can already see that you can make your Kashtira Rysart on your turn, then you don't really need to Shifter. Maybe you keep it in the hand, but also, you don't really lose anything if you use the Shifter. This card is especially strong if your opponent goes first and you can just go Shifter. For example, against Purli, it's quite nice having them or forcing them to put every quick play spell in the banished pile, where they optimally would want the quick play spells in the graveyard. That is really, really nice. This one is also able to block Maxi. Obviously, if you activate Shifter and then your opponent chains Maxi, then it doesn't work. But if Shifter is already active, Maxi cannot be activated. Same thing goes for the Kashtira Rysart, because Maxi has to be sent to the graveyard. So if you do not or didn't know that, any card that says you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard needs you to be able to do exactly that. So if there is a card on the field or an effect is activated like Shifter or Kashtira Rysart's effect that says you can, or everything goes to the banish pile, then you cannot activate cards that need to go to the graveyard. Other cards that says you need to like discard this card or activate this card, for example, this one here, when a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, quick effect, you can discard this card. Discarding, obviously, this also goes in the graveyard, but you can discard cards. They will then just go to the banish pile, but you could still activate them. So this is why Shifter is super, super nice. We have the Fenrir here. You know the card already. It can search another Kashtira monster. It is also able to, when your opponent activated the monster effects, or when this attacks, to banish one face-up card face down, which this face-down mechanic is then obviously able to trigger your Kashtira Shangri-Ira, but would also be able to trigger Kashtira Rysart. And if you trigger your Shangri-Ira to lock a zone, this will also trigger your new field spell, the Pressure Planet Ravesoft, to destroy a card on the field. We will come to this in a moment. Then we have Unicorn, our base starter here, which can search a Kashtira spell. Before it wasn't that useful because we only had the Birth. Now we have the Theosis as well, which is basically the combo line. You go Unicorn into Theosis, into summon your Fenrir, into searching a Rysart, into summoning a Rysart, going Shangri-Ira, activating the Rysart, dumping the Big Bang in the banished pile, and then you will activate the Shangri-Ira, and therefore you can then make the Rysart with only 1 guy instead of 3 level 7 monsters. But I will show you this in the combo guide. It's not that complicated. This deck isn't complicated to master in the sense of understanding the base combo line, if you will. This deck is complicated in the sense that you really have to understand how you have to use your interruptions, because one thing that you have to understand with Kashtira is this deck doesn't really have negates. Obviously we have Baron here, but making a Baron is not the normal play. It's more of a I can't do anything else play, or I have to use my Ash Blossom normal summon for that. This is obviously not optimal, because the only way you can make your Baron is with the Ash and one of your level 7 guys. But as you can imagine, a normal summoning an Ash just to use it as a tuner is not what we have the Ash in deck for. So Unicorn, and remember this is also able, once attacking or activating an opponent's effect, is able to take one card out of your opponent's extra deck and banish it. This can be really nice in the mirror matchup, where you definitely want to banish the opponent's Zeus, as this is one of the main ways how your opponent, Kashtira, your Kashtira opponent, can break your board. This obviously is also true for decks like Purely, which is also running the Zeus here. Then we have Kashtira Ogre, which Kashtira Ogre together with the preparations is not a package that you must play, but given the fact that we are really having a problem with consistency in this deck, I think it's nice to have an additional Kashtira card that you can just open with, and that's not like just a bad card, because it's a big body. This maybe can bring you through a turn in which you have basically bricked by just summoning this, searching your preparations, then maybe it gets destroyed, then you can resummon it with preparations, and this maybe will enable you to survive a turn, to have another turn, and then maybe draw something that you can play with. So this is why I think the Ogre is quite nice here. If the deck would be more consistent, you could think about putting the Ogre together with the prep package out. You have also seen people that do not play the preparations, which obviously is a nice card in the grind game. I think if you play the Ogre, you also want to play preparations, because the Big Bang you normally want to banish with your Rysart on your first turn. So this is not the trap that you are searching with your Ogre. So that's why running an Ogre without a preparation, I don't think it's the right call, but you could definitely do it. Then we have Scareclaw Kashtira, a new Scareclaw/Kashtira card, which is super nice. It says during the main phase, quick effect, also your opponent's main phase, by the way, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, banish one Kashtira or Scareclaw card from your hand or graveyard. This is totally fine, because as you know, Kashtira is very good with banished cards. So if you banish your, I don't know, Fenrir Unicorn, there are a lot of cards that can get them back and create additional value, and then you can only use this effect of Scareclaw Kashtira, so the summon effect. Once per turn, this card can attack while in face of defense position, and you will use the defense stat for the calculation. And then another really important and cool effect is if your Kashtira or Scareclaw monster battles an opponent's monster, that opponent's monster's effect are negated until the end of this turn. This even works against an Ex-Purely Noir, because Ex-Purely Noir is only protected from activated monster effects, and this is a lingering effect, meaning that it's basically available all the time. It does not need to be activated. Same thing goes for Skill Drain, for example. Note here that this is with every Scareclaw, every Kashtira or Scareclaw monster that you use. So it's not only the Scareclaw Kash attacking, it would also be, for example, your Kashtira Rysart that when attacking will be able to negate the opponent's monster's effects that it is attacking. This is a neat little thing that can really come up from time to time. This would, if I remember correctly, also be able to out the Avramax, though Avramax is not protected. Let me just read it. While this thing summon card is on the field, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Also, their monsters cannot target monsters for attacks. This one can I target the... So, okay, this would basically... Yeah, this would be disabled. So you could run over an Avramax if you have your Scareclaw Kash on the field. So a really nice card. I think in terms of consistency, you might be able to bump this up to 2. I don't know. This is more of a one-off. Then we have cards like Nibiru, the Primal Being, which is in here because I am expecting a lot of Kash players, and with the basic combo you are summoning at least 5 times. There's also a different combo that I will show you that you can use if a lot of people start playing stuff like Lava Golem or Ra Sphere Mode or Nibiru. Then there's a different combo line with Kashtira that you can use that only requires 4 summons and end on Kashtira Rysart, your boss monster, so that you can also use. Then we have 4 pots here. We have 2 Pot of Desires, 1 Pot of Extravagance, and 1 Pot of Prosperity. You would definitely want 3 of these. These are amazing, being able to banish some of your extra deck monsters that can then be attached to your Kashtira Rysart. We will talk about this in a moment when we come to the extra deck. One card that could also be nice, not quite sure, I have not tested it, we will have to see how this works out in the end, because this was already used in the base Kashtira deck that we had available for a few months now. Second Sword of 7 stars, banish 1 level 7 monster from your hand or face up field, draw 2 cards. So this is also able to draw 2 cards, same with Desires and Extravagance, but your extra deck as well as your deck has a lot of resources that you basically need, so you you have to afford banishing cards with Desires and Extravagance, though you can't really. That's the problem. It remains to be seen if banishing one level 7 monster from your hand, you will definitely want to do it from your hand, not from the face of field, is an okay cost to draw 2 cards, which consistency you definitely need in this deck. You need to get more cards to the hand, thereby upping your chance of getting to your Unicorn, maybe your Planet Pathfinder, or your Pressure Planet Wavesoft, or maybe you already have your Fenrir in hand and then only need your Birth to have a combo ready. This is definitely tricky. This can be quite tricky, and we will have to see which version of this deck will be most consistent. And I think the most consistent version of this deck is the one that you want to run in the end. I think Triple Tactic Talents is a really nice card, because if a lot of people are playing Kashtira, then the Arise Heart will definitely always make this live. For those of you who did not know that, Kashtira Arise Heart's effect to once per chain, each time a card is banished, attach 1 banished card to this as a material, is a mandatory effect. So you have to use this effect. It's not a can effect. So what this basically says is, if any card that would normally go to the graveyard gets banished, and every card gets banished under Kashtira Arise Heart, then this thing will activate and take 1 card from the banish pile and attach this to this as material. So this would automatically make your Triple Tactics talent live. You could argue bumping this up to 3 and maybe putting one of the pods out. As you can see, I don't have a third one. I'm not quite sure if you need a third one. This might be a better card over the other 4 here. Definitely not the Pot of Prosperity. This is definitely the best pot, and this you want to run. So get it if you don't have it already. So Triple Tactics talents, I think it's quite nice. We will have to see whether you can also or should also play the new card, the Thrust. Then we have Kashtira Theosis, the new normal spell, which this can also be a thrust target. Keep that in mind. So you might want to put this in here, because this can search any normal spell or trap card. So this is also able to search your Kashtira Theosis, for example. But let's read Kashtira Theosis. Target 1 Kashtira monster you control, special summon 1 Kashtira monster with a different attribute from your deck in defense position. Also for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except XYZs. So keep this in mind if you want to make your Baron de Fleur, or maybe, I don't know, your Donna Dagger or your Underworld Goddess, which is in here to out X Puruli Noirs if you need to do that. This is why this is in here, because we have a few more slots here in the extra deck, because we can't really use the Pot of Prosperity tech, as it was able to being used in the TCG, which was quite effective, but we only have it in 1. So our extra deck is not that important, at least not that important as it was in the TCG. So we can summon another Kashtira monster with a different attribute. Keep in mind that this is an earth monster, this is wind, this is also earth, this is fire, so and this is water. So as you can see, you can basically summon every other Kashtira monster with every Kashtira monster, though the Scareclaw, Kash, and the Fenrir have the earth attribute in common. These are the only 2 that basically cross each other out from being summoned via your Theosis. And then if this card is banished, which this is actually important, you can target one of your banished Kashtira cards, so cards, not even monsters, except this one, add it to your hand. You can only use each effect, so you can use both of them. Important to understand. And this is important because, for example, to summon your Scareclaw Kashtira, you have to banish a Kashtira card. So if you banish this from your graveyard, for example, and you, let's say, have, I don't know, a Fenrir banished, then you can target the Fenrir and get it back to hand. So this is a card that is also able to recycle resources. Another cool thing that you can do is you can put the Kashtira Theosis. So let's just say you have a Kashtira Arise Heart on your field, right? So everything now will get banished. And then let's say you activate a Kashtira Theosis. The Theosis gets banished. Then Kashtira Arise Heart activates because something got banished, and then it can attach something as material. What you then can do is attach the Kashtira Theosis as material to the Kashtira Arise Heart. And if you then use Kashtira Arise Heart's effect, which says you can detach 3 materials from this card, quick effect, then target 1 card on the field, banish it face down. If you then use this effect here, that means that the Kashtira Theosis will go to the banish pile once again. Remember, you have just picked it up from the banish pile, and because it went to the banish pile, the second effect of the Theosis will activate, enabling you to get another Kashtira card back to your hand. So this is quite a cool thing that you can do. So always remember, in terms of what you want to put under your Arise Heart as material, material from your graveyard, definitely go for a Theosis, go for a Big Bang, I will talk about this in a moment, and go for cards like your Infinitor Goliath, which is only in your extra deck, so that you can banish it with your Prod of Prosperity and then put it under your Arise Heart once the Arise Heart effect activates. But more to that in a moment when we talk about Arise Heart. So this is Theosis, basically an expander, being able to like further your combo lines if you only have your Unicorn, and you basically want to search your Kashtira Theosis with your Unicorn, and then sometimes if you have the Theosis already, or in different situations if you don't need the Theosis, so for example you have your Unicorn in your hand and then also a Fenrir, you can also get your Birth, because then you are able to additional normal summon your Fenrir to the field via your Birth. Then we have the Pressured Planet Wraith Soft, which it's always so hard to like speak this card correctly. This is our field spell. It's really unfortunate that we only have this at 1. This says when this card is activated, same as with the Tier Planet, you can add 1 Kashtira monster from your deck to your hand. So you normally would want to search your Unicorn here. Let's just hope Unicorn doesn't go to, I don't know, 2 or something. Then we would have big problems with this deck. Monsters you control gain 100 attack and defense for each different attribute on the field, so your different attributes and your opponents, and that's quite nice because, as you can see, your Kashtira monsters have different attributes and they also have really big stats from the get-go, so sometimes it can be enough. This is why, for example, the Pot of Extravagance, banishing your extra deck is not the worst thing that can happen, because sometimes your basic Kashtira monsters, for example the Fenrir, which is just a powerhouse in itself, can just be able to win a game because they have like really insane starting stats and then also really strong effects. So Kashtira, the Pressure Planet Wraiths off. If a Kashtira Shangri Ira you control, so the laser one, activates an effect except during the damage step, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy it. This is what I just talked about. The Shangri Ira, you know the card already, but the Shangri Ira says, let me just find this, it's hidden somewhere here. Each time a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down, you can choose 1 unused main monster or spell and trap zone, and it cannot be used while this monster is face up on the field. So this is the zone locking part of this card. Keep in mind that if you have the field spell online and your Shangri Ira, that cards like your Fenrir, which will banish face down, or your Unicorn, which will also banish face down, same goes for your Ogre and your Kashtira Arise Heart. These are all cards, and your Kashtira Arise Heart, though you would need to activate this on your turn, all of the other ones can also be activated on your opponent's turn. These cards enable you to activate Shangri Ira's effect to lock a zone, and this would also enable the Pressure Planet Wraithsoft to destroy a card on the field. So always keep that in mind. If you have the field spell online and you have your Shangri Ira and you have, I don't know, your Fenrir, your Unicorn, or maybe a Rise Heart, you have an additional interruption through your field spell if you activate your Shangri Ira. So in the original version of Kashtira, where we had the Diablosis, the Mind Hacker, which is now banned, this zone locking stuff would be one of the main ways to beat your opponent, because you actually were able to lock 5 zones on your first turn, thereby making your opponent unable to play, for example, monsters or spell and traps. In this version, the zone locking is really not that important. You will never really reach the point where you can banish all or can lock all of your opponent's zones. This can obviously happen, but it's not that important, so you don't really need to focus a lot when it comes to the locking the zones part here. So one of the core Kashtira strategies is a bit weakened, though I think this is a good thing, because having Diablosis in here would really make the game toxic, so this was a good decision. Pressured Planet. So we had this effect here, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy it, and then you can only use this effect of Pressured Planet Wraithsoft once per turn, and you can only activate 1 Pressured Planet Wraithsoft once per turn. So this is a combo starter because this can search your Unicorn and then also gives your monster boosts on the field and also is able to destroy a card. So it's definitely pretty similar to the Tier Planet. Tier Planet was able to search you 1. Tier Planet was able to, correct me if I'm wrong here, give the tier monsters 500 attack, I think. And was it 500? Was it that much? Okay, but I think tier monsters were getting attack, and then also you had this destruction part when an Aqua monster or a Tier Element monster was shuffled back. Then we have the Birth, which we know the card already, but you can normal summon a level 7 monster without tributing. This is really important, can really come up during your main phase, you can special summon one of your non-XYZ Kashtira monsters, so not your Arise Heart that is banished or in your graveyard. And also, if your opponent activates a spell card or effect and you control a Kashtira monster, you can target 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard, banish them face down. So this would also be able to, for example, activate your Shangri Ira on your opponent's turn. This is a card I missed in explaining Shangri Ira's effect. Then we have the Big Bang and the Preparations. Big Bang is also a new card which says if a Kashtira XYZ monster is on the field and the player controls 2 or more monsters, they must banish monsters they control face down, so they only control 1 monster. So if, for example, you end up with your Kashtira Arise Heart on the field, I think it's funny because Kashtira Arise Heart is also the card that is on the picture here. So let's just say you have your Kashtira Arise Heart only thing on the field, and then you set your Big Bang, and then your opponent summons, I don't know, 5 monsters. Let's just say 5 monsters. It's a bit overkill, I know, but then you could activate this trap and your opponent would then have to banish 4 of them so that they only control 1. So this can be quite a strong card on the field, though this is not the main thing that we will use it for. The main thing that we will use it for is the second effect of the card, which says if this card is banished, you can target 1 Kashtira XYZ monster you control, add 1 of your Kashtira monsters attached to it to your hand, so 1 of the materials, and then you don't have to special summon that monster from your hands. You can only use each effect of Kashtira Big Bang once per turn. So this is the second thing that makes sense to put under Arise Heart as material, because remember the mechanic of Theosis. You can put this under the Arise Heart as a material, and then you can use Arise Heart's banish effect. This will go back to the banish pile because of Arise Heart, and then this effect would trigger and you could target 1 of your Kashtira XYZs, take 1 of the materials under it, and then either put it back to your hand or special summon it. And of course, Kashtira Arise Heart can attach a lot of your cards to it as material, so it's not hard to imagine that there would be, I don't know, a Fenrir under Arise Heart or maybe a Unicorn. But you will also see in the basic combo, we will also use this to take 1 of our Kashtira Shangri Ira's material and get it back to hand or special summon it. So this is why we use the Big Bang. And then we have Preparation, which is not a new card, but we can quickly read it. It's a continuous trap during either player's turn, so once on your turn, once on your opponent's turn. You can special summon 1 of your Kashtira monsters that is banished or in your hand. So Birth can summon from the graveyard or the banished pile, this from banished or hand. If your opponent, this can be really nice against a trap tag like Labyrinth. If your opponent activates a trap card or effect, you control a Kashtira monster, and this card is already face up in your spell and trap zone, so this card already needs to be active. You can't like activate it in response to something, to the trap card. You can look at your opponent's hand, and if you do, banish 1 card from it face down. So for example, you have this already up and a Kashtira card on the field. Your Labyrinth opponent activates Big Welcome Labyrinth, and then you can look at his hand and banish 1 card face down, which is really, really strong. Otherwise, this is more used in the grind game, for example, in the Kashtira mirror match, where you can then, let's say you have your Birth on the field and also your Preparations, then you could use Birth to special summon a monster from, I don't know, the grave. Maybe you have a Fenrir in the grave, and then you can also use your Preparations. Let's say you have a Unicorn in the banished pile. You can use the Preparations to special summon a Unicorn, and those 2 cards would have given you back a Fenrir and a Unicorn, which obviously they in themselves have really strong effects, but you can then also once again go into your XYZ monsters. Concerning the extra deck, by the way, most of them are level 7 XYZs, and as you can see, all of our Kashtira monsters are also, the Rise Heart is level 4, but if it uses its effect to banish 1 card and then banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, this also will get a level 7 monster, or become a level 7 monster, so this is why this works. This is the main deck, and then we come to the extra deck. You have a Baron that, as I already said, you can make by normal summoning an Ash Blossom and 1 of your Kashtira monsters. Keep in mind that you want to summon the Kashtira monster first, because all the Kashtira monsters, all the main Kashtira monsters, so Ogre, Unicorn, and Fenrir, can be special summoned when no monsters on the field. So you would want to special summon 1 of them and then normal summon the Ash behind it, making a Baron, which making a Baron can be enough to stop your opponent from playing the game. Sometimes, not always, but it's just a super strong interruption, as it is an Omni Negate, and basically the only way that you can set up a negate on the field. Or not basically the only way, it is the only way. Of course, not talking about cards like the Infinite Impermanence, which is a negate in itself. Then we have number 11 Big Eye, 2 level 7 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 monster your opponent controls, take control of that monster forever. This card cannot attack the turn this effect is activated, so this is really nice, using 2 of your materials, which, remember, you can really recycle them via your Preparations and your birth. So if, for example, you get 1 Fenrir and 1 Unicorn for free via your birth and preparations, which we just talked about, for example, then you can go into a big guy, steal one of your opponent's monsters, thereby breaking their board. We have number 7-4, Master of Blades, 2 level 7 monsters. When a card or effect is activated that targets this face-up card, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card and negate the activation, and if you do destroy that card, then you can destroy 1 card on the field. So you can make this to go into, for example, your Zeus, because this is pretty safe from being targeted, because this has an inbuilt negate to be protected from that. This is why number 74, Master of Blades, is quite nice. You have Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, which also 2 level 7 monsters, cannot be destroyed by card effect while it has material. This is already quite nice, and it has a big stat. While this card has material, each time your opponent activates a card or effect, inflict 500 damage to your opponent immediately after it resolves. So this is basically Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, and then once per turn, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 Red Eyes normal monster in your graveyard, special summon it. This is obviously not important. So you can use this in a situation where your opponent does not have a lot of life points left, and then you can basically put him on a counter, on a clock. But keep in mind that the 500 damage will only be inflicted after the card resolves. So, for example, if he activates a Raigeki under Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, he would then have to pay 600 immediately, and maybe he can't and will just die. But let's just say your opponent has 500 life points left, place a Raigeki, you have this guy on the field, then the Raigeki will destroy the Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, and then your opponent will not have to pay 500 because it says 500 damage to your opponent immediately after it resolves. But at the moment the Raigeki resolves, this card is then no longer on the field, so that is why this card can then not use the effect anymore. Keep that in mind. Then we have Dark Armed Dragon of Annihilation. You could, if you missing some cards from the extra deck here, you could think about getting an additional Big Eye or an additional Dark Arm. These are really nice cards. 2+ level 7 monsters. Once per turn, if you have exactly 5 dark monsters in your graveyard, you can also XYZ summon Dark Armed Dragon of Annihilation by using 1 level 5 or higher Dark Dragon monster you control as material. This basically never comes up. I'm not even sure if it can. Let's say you have 2 Shifters engrave and then 3 Arise Hearts. So as you can see, this is not really the point why we are playing this card. The point is you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it, then banish 1 card from your graveyard. Also, this card cannot attack for the rest of this turn. So you can make this with 2 or maybe 3 materials and then destroy cards on your opponent's fields, breaking it, or maybe you have already broken the board and want to clean it up. Then you can make the Dark Armed Dragon of Annihilation and destroy cards on the field. Also, you can banish stuff from your graveyard, which, remember, if for example you banish your Kashtira Theosis or your Kashtira Big Bang, you would then be able to activate their effects to gain additional advantage, as we just talked about. So you can see how this banishing really benefits the Kashtira archetype. We have the Shangri-Ira, which we already had in game, but I quickly just want to read over this again. So for everyone who is not familiar with the card, during each standby phase, yours and your opponents, you can special summon 1 Kashtira monster from your deck. Really strong. You can only use the previous effect of Shangri-Ira once per turn. Each time a card, we have already read this, but let's just read it once again. Each time a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down. So your opponent has to own this card. It's not like your cards, and they have to be banished face down, so not normal banishing. Except during the damage step, you can choose 1 unused main monster or spell and trap zone. It cannot be used while this monster is face up on the field. And then this is also really important, and keeping in mind effect, if this card on the field would be destroyed by battle or card effect, so battle or card effect, and this has 3000 defense, you can detach 1 material. This will have at least 2. You can also make it with more from this card instead to protect it, basically. So it's not easy to out Kashtira Shangri-Ira, and Shangri-Ira is able to special summon Kashtira monsters from your deck during your standby phase, enabling you to basically play the game once again. So a really strong card that can really be nice in the grind game. So let's just finally read our big boss monster that we have just gotten here, the one that was missing, the one card that got away. You have Kashtira Arise. It needs 3 level 7 monsters, but you don't need to make it with 3. Once per turn, you can also XYZ summon Kashtira Arise by using 1 Kashtira monster you control if an effect of Kashtira Shangri-Ira was successfully activated this turn. So if you have activated the effect to special summon a monster from the deck via the standby phase, or if Shangri-Ira was used to lock a zone, then you can also make the Kashtira Arise with 1 level 7 monster with 1 Kashtira monster you control. Sorry, it doesn't even need to be a level 7 monster, so you could also make it with a Kashtira Arise that's only level 4 here. Keep in mind that this also counts for your opponent's Kashtira Shangri Aiba. So if, for example, your opponent activates Shangri Aiba in standby phase to summon a monster, or maybe in main phase to lock one of your zones, and it's your turn, you then could just make Kashtira Rysart with one Kashtira monster because the effect of Shangri Aiba was used. It does not need to be your own Shangri Aiba. Or 6 times above transfer, add materials to this card. Okay, that makes sense. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. This is the Macrocosmos effect that's always active. So this is why everything will get banished, and then you will be able to get the Kashtira Theosis or the Big Bang under your Rysart as material, because it's easy to get them to the banish pile if everything gets banished with your Rysart. And then once per chain, so per chain, each time a card is banished. So understand that every card gets banished, any card that is sent to the graveyard is banished instead, and each time a card is banished basically means whenever a card hits the graveyard. And that basically means whenever a card is activated, because if I, for example, activate my Pot of Desires, then where will it go? To the graveyard. Then it will get banished through Kashtira Rysart, and then this effect of Kashtira Rysart will activate. Keep in mind, it's mandatory, you have to activate this, thereby activating your opponent's Triple Tactics Talents or Thrust if he has it in hand. Once per chain, each time a card is banished, attach, and it doesn't matter if it's banished face down or banished, attach one banished card to this card as material, so you can choose one of your opponent's banished cards or one of your own. Keep in mind that if you banish cards from your opponent's deck face down, you will not see which cards you attach, and even if you attach them, you then can't see the cards. So they will be face down, but you have them as material. And then once per turn, quick effect, you can detach 3 materials from this card, then target one card on the field, banish it face down. So this is a really strong interruption, though this is not a negation. Keep that in mind. And this is definitely something that you want to end on every end board of yours. This is the boss monster of the archetype, and we will quickly hop over into the combo guide or combo part of the tutorial in a minute. We have Zeus just to clear the field. Nothing like really interesting to say here. We have Infinitrack Goliath, which says or needs one non-link Infinitrack monster. Blah 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 blah. Doesn't really matter. An XYZ monster whose original type is Machine, which is Kashtira Rysart, which original type is Machine and has this card as material. Against this effect, this card cannot be destroyed by card effects. So what you can do, you can use your Pot of Prosperity, for example, or you could also use your Pot of Extravagance, because this also banishes your extra deck. And then you can, this would need to hit this, the Goliath, like randomly. You could think about bumping this up to maybe 2 if you wanted to, but with the Pot of Prosperity, for example, you can just choose the Infinitrack Goliath, so it will get banished. And then if you have your Kashtira Rysart on the field, and it can, or the effect will activate where it can attach a banished card as material, you can then attach the Infinitrack Goliath to the Kashtira Rysart as material, and thereby the Kashtira Rysart cannot be destroyed by card effects anymore. So this is one really cool way in which you can make your Kashtira Rysart more resilient. This is not a card that you must run, but I really think this is a cool card, and the extra deck has some space for cards like this. Then I also played the Donner Dagger for Hire, which you can use to out specific cards, can come up sometimes. And then you also have Underworld Goddess of the Closed Worlds. I would say the Underworld Goddess as well as the Donner Dagger for Hire and cards like the number 74 are cards that you don't like need in the extra deck, that you can switch out. It's also debatable if you need 3 Shangri Aibas and 3 Rysarts, but you definitely need 2 Shangri Aibas and 2 Rysarts. And if you want to play the Pot of Extravagance, then I would suggest having 3 of them. So that's all for the cards. If you want to know anything further about the cards, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, we will now hop over into the combo part of the guide. All right, let's look at the main and most simplest combo that you can do with this deck. For this combo, you would need your Kashtira Unicorn. Let's just activate the planet that we have here and add our Unicorn to the hand. And let's just imagine we would only have Unicorn in hand. Let's just ignore the planet and also the other cards. Obviously, we already have Theosis, the main search target for Unicorn, but we will just pretend that we don't have it. So Kashtira Unicorn, we will activate Unicorn's effect to add a Kashtira Theosis to the hand. Then you would want to activate Theosis, targeting your Unicorn. Keep in mind that now you can summon a Kashtira monster with a different attribute. We can summon the Fenrir in defense position, which this sometimes can be a problem because you want your Fenrir in attack position. Obviously, on our first turn, it's not a problem because we can't attack. But if we do this on the second turn, this can be a bit tricky. With the Fenrir, you now want to search your Kashtira Theosis. Now you can either summon the Shangri-Iwa now or summon the Shangri-Iwa once you have your Theosis on the field. Doesn't really make a difference. We can make Shangri-Iwa now activate the effect of Theosis because there's another Kashtira monster. We can special summon it. Just do that. Then we activate the effect of Kashtira Theosis, banishing one Kashtira card to make this level 7 and also banish 3 of our opponent's deck cards face down. We choose the new card Kashtira Big Bang to banish, then there will be 3 cards going into the banish pile for our opponent. And now you can see, because cards were banished face down, we have the effect of Shangri-Iwa to lock a zone and the effect of Big Bang because it was banished. So you go Shang 1 and Bang 2, as they say. You can lock, I don't know, the middle zone or one of these. I think these 3 zones are the best and useful ones to lock. This also depends a bit, but you never know what you're up against. So if, for example, you put your Shangri-Iwa here, it would definitely make sense. Okay, I'm correcting myself. If you put Shangri-Iwa here, it makes sense to lock one of these zones, because if your opponent makes a link summon, then obviously his link arrows will either be here, here, or here, depending on which deck he plays, obviously, and these zones would be less important, so keep that in mind. Then you activate your Big Bang, and remember Big Bang, because it was banished, you can now select one of your Kashtira XYZ monsters, which has materials, can confirm that, and now you can choose one of the materials under the XYZ and either grab it back to hand or special summon it, or you will grab it back to hand and then you can decide whether you want to special summon it. I would suggest we take the Fenrir, because we only have 2 Fenrirs in deck, and when we have 3 unicorns. I will explain to you in a moment why I think that is better. Now we can summon the Fenrir, but we don't need to. In this case, I think we want to, because keep in mind, this will probably be a card that will be on our field when our opponent starts the turn, and being able to banish a card face down is really strong and also has really great synergies with our general strategy. Now you can activate the planet's effect to destroy something here. In our scenario, we are just imagining this is not on the field, but I quickly want to mention one thing here that you could do. What you can do is use this effect to target your own Shangri-Iwa. Let's just do it like this. This is not part of the combo, just ignore this part here. You can target this, and because now you can use Shangri-Iwa's protection effect. Yeah, you can use the protection effect, detach 1 material, this will go to the graveyard, and now it won't get destroyed. This can be useful because if we had the birth in hand, the Kashtira birth, we could now play the birth and revive our Kashtira unicorn back to the field. So we would have been able basically to use another Big Bang, if you will, because Big Bang also takes one of the materials, gets it back to hand and then to the field, though in this scenario we would get the material to the graveyard and then put Kashtira Birth if we would have it in hand, which we would have it in hand because we already had the Kashtira Theosis, but this would then be able to resummon the unicorn here, and then we would not need to summon another unicorn from our Shangri-Iwa in our opponent's standby phase. We could then summon an ogre, for example, to have an additional interaction. But this is just not part of the normal combo, and you can also debate whether you want to do this, because obviously now the Shangri-Iwa has no materials left, so if it now gets destroyed by card effect or battle, it cannot or no longer protect itself. So you can definitely make an argument for doing it, but also for not doing it. So what you want to do now is let's just really do like basic combo. I will talk about other things that you can do in a moment. So now, because you have activated the effect of Kashtira Shangri-Iwa, you can just use one of your Kashtira cards to make your Rise Art, and here it goes. Cool animation. You have a Rise Art here and you have 1 material under this, and yeah, this is basically your basic combo if you only have Unicorn. We could now, I want to show you one thing after this, but you could now go into your opponent's phase and in standby phase use your Shangri-Iwa to summon another Fenrir from the deck, and then you would have your Kashtira Banish face down effect if a monster effect gets activated. You will have your Unicorn extra deck rip effect. You will have the effect of Shangri-Iwa locking a zone and then activating your field spell if you would have it to destroy a card, and you would obviously have your Kashtira Rise Art. If then it has 3 materials, it can then also banish a card face down. So one way that you can, if you have done it like this, can get more materials under this now, we can just take a quick look at this because we can. So let's now look at our hand. This is basic combo with only 1 unicorn, but in our hand we also have a pot of desires. And if we have made the Kashtira Rise Art first, then now we are able to get more materials under it, because it would obviously be nice to already have 3 materials under this when our opponent starts our turn, because otherwise we would first have to wait for our opponent to activate a few cards cards until we have 3 materials under it, and then this card can banish something with quick effect. But there are obviously ways in our turn that we can use to get 3 materials under this before we pass over to our opponent. For example, using this pot here. So he gets use it, we are banishing 10 cards and drawing 2. And now there you can see there's a card getting banished, and now a Rise Art activates, and now we can attach something from the banish pile here. We have just learned that attaching a Kashtira Big Bang would net us a bonus, a benefit, so we are doing this. And now you could activate additional cards. Let's just say I can also show you the Kashtira Theosis thingy here with the Scareclaw. This will get another material under this. We can activate Scareclaw Kashtira, summoning this in defense position. Then we can banish our Graveyard's Theosis here. This will activate the Kashtira Rise Art, and now we can put another material under this. Let's just use the Kashtira Theosis. And now, as you can see, the ability to, once per turn, quick effect, to detach 3 materials from this card, then target 1 card on the field, banish it face down, is now live. So now we can do it on our opponent's turn. So if you can do this, if you can end up on a 3 material Rise Art, that is quite nice. I will also show you a different way, which you can use the basic combo for to always have a 3 material Rise Art in a moment. But yeah, we can quickly just pass over to our opponent just to, you have the Shangri Iber now. Obviously, you have also a Rise Art. We could now summon an Ogre. You could also have summoned the Unicorn. Normally, keep in mind, you would have summoned a Unicorn. This was just an example. And then you would have Fenrir, Unicorn, Shangri Iber, and the Rise Art. Now, because Shangri Iber was activated, you could use the planet to pop something, but why would we? Not really, doesn't really make any sense here. He does creature swap, and just to show you, we can now activate the Kashtira Rise Art. I don't know, we are banishing the creature swap. This obviously doesn't make any sense, as you might have already guessed. We are giving him our Ogre, taking this one here. And now, once per chain, this activates because the card got banished. The creature swap, and we also banished our cards here. So this is the effect to attach 1 card as material, as it's highlighted here. Then Shangri Iber also, because a card was banished face down, the creature swap is now able to lock a zone. Keep in mind that after this, the planet will also be able to destroy a card, and also Kashtira Theosis, because we have put this to the banish pile, is now able to get us a Kashtira card back from the banish pile to our hand. Kashtira Big Bang, which we also have detached, which would also be activating right now, but as you can see, our XYZ monsters don't have material under them anymore, so it can't activate at this point. This is why that doesn't work. So I'm blocking this zone here, then the Rise Art, then the Theosis will, I don't know, give me the Rise Art back to my hand. And now, because this is the mandatory effect, and we had this in the tutorial part, in the rules part, mandatory effects will go on chain first. This will resolve last. And now we could, for example, once again get the Theosis under this. So when we banish the Theosis again, we can once again use Theosis effect. And now the planet, because we have used Shangri Iber's locking effect, can destroy another card, right? This is how this works. And we have a giant red inherited here. Kashtira Ogre will now activate, but that's not important anymore. Let me just hop right over into another scenario in which I will show you how you can also just guaranteed make a Kashtira Rise Art with 3 materials on your turn if you only have the Unicorn. So I have successfully gotten a Unicorn into the hand via my Pot of Prosperity here, and now I can show you the combo line that you can use to make a Kashtira Rise Art with guaranteed 3 materials on your turn. So now we are really imagining that we only have the Unicorn here and just forget everything else that we have here in hand. And I will show you how you can achieve this. There will be downsides and upsides, and you will have to decide for yourself whether you want to do this or you don't want to do this. Activate the effect of Rise Art. You can make the Shangri Iber before, you can make the Shangri Iber now. It doesn't make a difference whether you first make Shangri Iber or the Rise Art special summon. It's basically the same as it was in the last combo here. Nothing too special. Big Bang. Then you go Shang 1, Bang 2. Give me a sec. Lock one of the zones, maybe the middle one here. Target this. And once again, I would suggest picking the Fenrir, because then we can leave the last remaining Fenrir in the deck, so we can maybe draw the Fenrir. Though in this combo line, as I'm now realizing, it doesn't really make a big difference. Okay, so normally you would now go and make your Kashtira Rise Art with your Rise Art. What you can also do is just make another Shangri Iber with these 2 here. And then because Shangri-Ira has obviously 2 materials and you have activated another Shangri-Ira, you can then overlay the Kashtira Rysart on this Shangri-Ira here. There is your boss monster, and as you can see, this has 3 materials under it now. Obviously, there are cards in my hand that would allow me, for example, the Scareclaw Kash would allow me to banish the Theosis, thereby giving this more material. I could also use a Planet Pathfinder, bringing this to the banished pile. And then this would get more materials, obviously, but this is a way in which you can, with only Unicorn, get 3 materials under this as you start your turn. But always keep in mind if you can use cards afterwards, so like, for example, the Scareclaw Kash or the Pathfinder, which obviously the Pathfinder I would have used at the beginning of the turn, but let's just say you could use cards afterwards, then it's better to use the cards to get materials under this than to use your materials, because obviously, if I now pass over to my opponent, then as you can see, I can now summon with the Shangri-Ira, but I have used my Kashtira Fenrir here. So I either need to summon a Fenrir now or a Unicorn. Obviously, Fenrir is the nicer and better interruption, but now I am missing the Unicorn basically. So the advantage of this is that I'm ready at point 0 basically to banish anything face down, and I don't need to wait for my opponent to activate cards so I can get more material under this. But the disadvantage is that this will cost me a material, so instead of having a Fenrir and a Unicorn, I only have one of them on the field, so you have to decide whether you want to do this. And keep in mind, if you have follow-up cards here, let's for example say I still would have a Pot of Prosperity, which would definitely be the best one to activate after a Rysart, because I could just banish an Infinitor Goliath with the Pot of Prosperity and then put this under the Rysart as a material. That would be really, really great. But keep in mind that if you have follow-up cards, then you might be able to make a 3 material Rysart without you needing to do this thing that I just showed you. Now I will show you the combo that you can use if you play against a lot of people doing Nibiru or a lot of people using Lava Golem or Ra Sphere mode, because as you can see we have at least 2 cards on the field. Most of the time we have even more, so Ra Sphere mode would work to break our board completely, Lava Golem would work, and Nibiru would have worked in the opponent's turn because we have definitely summoned more than 5 times. There is also a way with our Kashtira Unicorn starter that you can use to just go 4 summons and be on your Kashtira Rysart. If you have paid attention, you might already know how this works, but I still will show you in the next clip. Now I quickly want to show you how you can reach full combo if you only have Fenrir and the Birth in hand, because this also works. You can special summon your Fenrir. Keep in mind what we want to have on the end field is or what we need to start this combo is Unicorn, Fenrir and the Rysart. You can now go Birth here. Can use the Fenrir to get your Unicorn to your hand. Then you can summon the Unicorn via the effect of the Kashtira Birth and a normal summon without tributing. Then you can activate Unicorn to search your Kashtira Theosis, and then can just use Kashtira Theosis to get your Kashtira Rysart to the field. So this is basically the same situation in which we will end up if we only had the Unicorn, and now you would just continue doing the same stuff. Rysart, Big Bang, before you activate this, make a Shangri-Ira here, and then you can just go into your Rysart and all the other stuff. So with only a Fenrir and a Birth, you can also reach this state here in which you can now just continue making your standard plays that you would normally make if you would just have started with the Unicorn, right? So you just activate this now, and then the same thing as in all the other combos I showed you here. All right, let me now show you how you can with only the Unicorn go and play around Nibiru, around Lava Golem, around Ra Sphere mode. So basically it's all the same. Just imagine we only had Unicorn in hand as always. You go Unicorn into Theosis, into summon Fenrir, then Fenrir go search the Rysart. Nothing too special here. You search the Rysart, and now you summon the Rysart. Don't even need to summon it with this effect. Could also normal summon it if you wanted to. Activate the Rysart's effect. At this point, as you can see, the Big Bang is in hand. It doesn't really matter because, yeah, we don't need the Big Bang in this part. You could banish the Theosis if you have, for example, something else here. Maybe it's your second turn, I don't know. You can also banish one of your Kashtira monsters so you can revive them later with a Birth. Let's just say we want our Ogre there, so we could maybe revive it later. It doesn't really matter. So now we have summoned 3 times, so you have 3 level 7 monsters, and obviously you are now able to go into your Kashtira Rysart, and you have only used 3 summons for this. have used 3 and now the 4th summon, so there is no Nibiru here. You have your Kashtira Rysart and whatever you have left in your hand. You obviously had some hand cards that you can also set. This has already 3 materials. You can banish something. This is the Macrocosmos effect. And this plays around Lava Golem and Ra Sphere mode. Though I will have to say that I don't think that there will be a time in which we will play this as the basic combo. Because in a best of 1 format, it's really not that great, because you never know what you are playing against. Obviously, if you play against in a best of 3, if you play against your opponent and he sees that you are playing Kashtira and you do a full combo here, and then he might go, okay, I put the triple Nibiru in, and then you might go, okay, I know that he puts Nibirus in, so I go for the 4 summon combo line or the Ra Sphere modes or the Lava Golems or whatever, because you have seen this in the 2nd game, and then in the 3rd game you could adapt to that and just summon the Rysart. Though I think here in Master Duel it's not that important. I don't think this will ever come up, so keep that in mind, but I wanted to just show you that, and that is basically all that you need to know for Kashtira. You now have to learn the deck, basically. You have to learn what you can do at which point, how you can use your stuff like your birth and your preparations to regain advantage and gain advantage overall by banishing your opponent's cards, using your strong extra deck XYZ monsters, level 7 XYZ monsters here to gain advantage, and then also learn a bit how to break your opponent's boards. You can use your Zeus for that, obviously. You can use your strong Rysart. You can use cards like your Fenrir, which is able by attacking, banishing something face down. So this is already a really strong interruption or a really strong board breaker that you can use. But the Kashtira engine isn't that big, and we can only put that much cards in, or that many cards in, that make this deck more consistently. Obviously, we cannot put like 20 pots in here just to get to our starter monsters. So there's a lot of room for like anti-engine stuff, or for non-engine stuff like the Book of Eclipses that you could run to book everything face down. This could also help you break your opponent's Kashtira board. You can use your infinite impermanences that are in here to shut off an opponent's Kashtira Rysart. You have your triple tactics talents that can sometimes be enough to break a board. You, for example, steal your opponent's Rysart because it's an XYZ. You attack with this and go Zeus, clear everything. There are a lot of options that you can use. You have a strong engine that is definitely able to go second and break the board. I hope you have a lot of fun. I hope you liked this guide. Let me know in the comments how you liked it, and if you like my kind of videos in general, please consider subscribing, hitting the thumbs up and the notification bell. This helps out this channel a lot, and we will see each other in the next one.